right now, Ellen Nunez is on the line. She is with Stand Up for Democracy, Yes on 2H, or MoveToAmend.org, because I guess the Stand Up for Democracy, Yes on 2H has gone and been yes. Alina, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for joining us. So tell us what happened in Boulder last night.
So it was a big night for Boulder last night. Boulder voters approved a measure to call for a constitutional amendment saying that corporations shouldn't have constitutional rights and money is not free speech. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the latest count, it passed with 73.72% of the vote. So overwhelming support for this measure.
That is spectacular. 73 and change.
Yeah.
So,
really 74%.
Now, by coincidence today, a whole bunch of senators, I think it's 5, 6, 7 Democratic senators, have introduced a constitutional amendment in Congress that basically says, it doesn't say corporations aren't people. It doesn't say money isn't speech. What it does say is that when Citizens United was decided and basically unlocked the doors of unlimited campaign contributions, that they're going to amend the Constitution and allow Congress to say, we can limit campaign contributions, and that is a power that Congress has. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Shall we call it compromise?
Well, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's great to see that this dialogue is elevating. I think that the proposed amendment from these U.S. senators really goes to the core of a court ruling that was in the early 70s, the Buckley v. Vallejo, where the Supreme Court said that money was essentially free speech, and so you couldn't regulate expenditures. Right. So to see this proposal, which says, no, Congress and states have the right and can pass restrictions on campaign finance, is definitely a step in the right direction.
Okay, and I agree with you. I think that's a spectacular one. MoveToAmend.org is the website. How did this come about? How did you put this thing on the ballot in Boulder, and how can our listeners or viewers do the same in their own hometown?
Well, sure. So to tell you a little bit about it, first, I'm with Colorado Common Cause, and we are a partner of Move to Amend, the Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center, the Boulder County Democrats, and a handful of other organizations who earlier this summer really wanted to take action on Citizens United. Mm-hmm. And that group started talking with city councilors and found a very supportive one in Macon Coles. And Councilor Coles worked with City Council to put the measure on the ballot. And since July, we've really just been talking to voters to get the word out and elevate this issue.
Okay.
So I think the takeaway from Boulder is really that when you talk to the voters about this issue, there's overwhelming support.
I understand initially.
Occupy, you can see it in all these things. So it's just a question of talking to groups and building the momentum.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The process here was the city council had to decide to put this on the ballot. They had to vote by majority to put this on the ballot. And then once it was on the ballot, the voters of Boulder could vote on it. And they did last night, 73% and change, in favor of saying, no, corporations are not people, money is not speech. And initially, the city council was against putting this on the ballot and letting the voters vote on it by a, 6-3 majority, if I recall?
Yeah, there were definitely some initial concerns from council. I think part of it, which is a question we get a lot, is just, what's the significance of having a city vote on something that's ultimately going to be a U.S. constitutional amendment?
Right. And this is a resolution. This is not a law.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the more groups that got involved and the more that people talked about this issue, it became clear that this really is a local issue for Boulder. Boulder is a city that has, over the years, been a real champion on money and politics issues. They passed a public financing program for their city council races. They've long supported, ethics campaigns and campaign finance. And a lot of the good victories in Boulder have been undercut by the Supreme Court. So the more everyone talked about it, the more it became clear that this was a local issue, and it made sense for Boulder to move forward on it.
All right, so Move to Amend is operated as a kind of an umbrella coalition. You're with Common Cause in Boulder, in Denver?
Colorado, yeah.
In Colorado, okay. And what's that website?
It's coloradocommoncause.org.
Okay, coloradocommoncause.org.
And then if folks want to learn more about the Yes on 2H campaign, our website is yeson2h.org, and that has a lot of the media from the campaign, some of our campaign literature, and gives a good overview of what happened in Boulder over the last several months.
Right, so you can get a sense of how to do this in your community. Now, speaking of doing this in your community, next week, Missoula, Montana is going to be doing the same thing, essentially.
Yes.
Did you coordinate your actions with theirs, or vice versa?
We didn't coordinate closely, but, Common Cause, Move to Amend, a lot of the groups who worked in Colorado are also working in Missoula, so I think there is some good crossover energy.
But it's like basically local Missoula folks are doing Missoula, and local Boulder folks did Boulder. And pretty much anybody who wants to do it in their local community, wherever you may be living, from Maine to Southern California, from Washington State to Florida, you can do it by going to movetoamend.org and getting that information, going to yeson2h.org. Do I have that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeson2h.org, or coloradocommoncause.org, and this is going viral. There's a lot of this stuff. Now, how do your thoughts? Elena Nunez, we're speaking with the press contact for Stand Up for Democracy, yes, and yeson2h.org. What's your take on how we move the United States Senate or House of Representatives from let's just make campaign contributions limitable as a constitutional amendment? I mean, if we're going to do a constitutional amendment, which is a BFD, to paraphrase, it's a huge, difficult, hard thing. If we're going to do it, why not do it all the way? Why not say, basically, we're going to put the word natural before the word person in the 14th Amendment and just roll back 150 years or more of Supreme Court doctrine that says that corporations are persons and have rights under the Constitution?
Right.
Isn't that a debate worth having, even though it's kind of an internecine war?
I think it's an important debate, and I think that the way for us as activists to advance that debate is by passing resolutions like this. Most of the opposition we've heard to a more broad constitutional amendment has been that it's too difficult or that it won't be popular. And I think votes like the one that happened in Boulder last night show that actually when you tell voters about this issue, they support it overwhelmingly. And the more we can provide that cover and actually show that this is popular and it's what the people want, I think the less likely we'll see a more narrow resolution or a more narrow piece of legislation or proposed constitutional amendment.
Okay, great.
But it's an important conversation we have to have.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And just, in the shameless plug department, but I think it's a useful resource. I wrote an entire book on this called Unequal Protection, and Truth Out is giving that book away online. You can read it online over at truthout.org, too. So that's just another resource for what it's worth.
Right.
But
and the more
go ahead.
people hear about it, I think the more they talk to their friends and talk to their neighbors, and that's how we build a movement.
There you go.
Take action.
Yeah, and the movement's happening. The movement had a great victory last night, and congratulations, Alina. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.